First of all, of course, thanks so much for coming. This was a total surprise. I knew that we had a language assembly this evening, and they told me that there would be a little warm-up before the assembly, and I had no idea whether they were going to be serving hot dogs or anything until I walked in here tonight. So it's a great evening for me, and thanks to all of you. Just so many good memories here. I wish I had enough time to regale some of these memories with you, but I will treat you to one tonight. Larry Houghton walked in here tonight, and I have not seen Larry. He was a class of '76, and he was about half the size that he is now. Where are you, Larry? Did he leave? Anyway, Larry Houghton was with us on that trip in 1976, and one of the highlights of Moscow was to visit the tomb of Lenin, the embalmed remains of Lenin, the God man. So we had been in line for about an hour. Any of you who, Nikki, those of you who went in those early years when they were still showing off Lenin's body, they don't do it anymore. I don't know what they're going to do with Lenin's body. I don't think they've ever really decided. But in those days, the big thing was to stand in line, cold weather, it didn't matter. You had to see Lenin's body. So we had been in line for about an hour, and it was cold, snowing, and when we got up to the front of the line, Larry Houghton's pocket had a little bulge in it. So the guard came up to him and pulled him out and said, "What's that in your pocket?" So Larry pulled out a little miniature box of cornflakes. The guard took the box, shook it, frowned, and said, "You go to the end of the line. Check it in a hotel, and then you can come back again." Well, that process of going to the end of the line was probably at least a quarter of a mile long, getting into a hotel, checking his cornflakes. We'll just show you a picture of Lenin, Larry. When I saw Larry tonight, I said, "Larry, you are the Larry Houghton that didn't get to see me." He said, "Mr. Miller, you remember that?" Larry, I'll never forget. Dr. Laser, Paul Laser, told me, warned me, he said, "Ed," he said, "don't talk about all the glorious accomplishments in your Russian class. Nobody wants to hear that." He said, "Just tell them some human interest stories." And I was kind of hoping that Ann Hughes would be here tonight. She was supposed to be here. She's the wife of John Hughes. Anybody here remember Ann Hughes? Oh, good. Okay, well then I can tell this and maybe get a couple of laughs. Well, Ann was not like John. Ann was a hyper. She had long blonde hair, and Ann was always flipping her hair. She was chairperson for the language assembly, and it was in the auditorium. And so she said, "Ed, I want you to get up at the end of the assembly and let the parents know that they're invited to refreshments in the library, and be sure to dismiss the kids and tell them to move on to, let's just say, Mod 3. Well, Don Sudbrink had warned us about making these assemblies a little shorter, because the longer they went, the more you could see people dozing off. Well, apparently that happened to me. I was up on the stage. And at one point when I thought everything was done, I saw Ann looking like this, and I thought, that's my cue. So I stood up, Gary Shaw will remember this. I stood up and I said, ladies and gentlemen, parents, thank you so much for coming tonight. You're invited to the library for refreshments, and everybody else, students, please move on to Montague. Well, Ann is flipping her and yelling, Ed. Well, the guest speaker had not been introduced. So I stood up and I said, there's been a mistake. So I called him back. But if you notice, if you ever see Ann, and if you see a few gray ones, attribute that to me. Ann was a great chairperson, just like Danica is today, and Jane Michael was. I've been very fortunate to have very tolerant people as chairpersons for the language. But I could really go on, but I know we have to move on. Is that correct? Again, everybody, I love you. Thanks very much for coming.